I'm Lama Tantrapa. Welcome to the Secrets of Qigong Masters, the talk show brought to you by Academy of Qidao, the first and only school in the world offering professional education in Qigong coaching. To find out about Qigong coaching and the programs offered by Academy of Qidao, please visit qigongcoaching.com. Today, I'm honored to interview Dr. Jerry Allen Johnson. He is the foremost expert in medical Qigong in America and an author of many books on Taoist alchemy, magic, and the art of transformation. Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson, for accepting my invitation to be the guest of my show. It's an honor to be in your house, and I would love to ask you first, could you share with us a little bit about the feng shui of this beautiful place? I'm sure that you've used some of your magic to create this oasis.
Well, the most important thing was that as you enter into the house, it should be warm and loving and inviting. So the furniture is arranged in that way with the plants and the different geodes, and so that what happens is that as you come in, you're embraced by kind of a loving environment. So that's kind of the whole feng shui about it.
Well, you also mentioned vortex that is somewhere in your backyard.
Yes, when we first looked at the house, I was teasing about the floor, but the other thing is that it had an energetic vortex in the back, and we noticed that because not only were there lots of birds, but they have a habit of making the same pattern of spiraling all the way up, hitting the vortex and spiraling up. And so we watched different cloud formations and also the different animals and how they relate to the environment. So that was one of the selling factors. It was, we looked at other houses, but something about the space and the energy was so inviting that it was important to get this one. So.
Absolutely. Well, I think this was a great choice. And it is an example of how making choices based on energy awareness is the most intelligent way to make choices in general.
Yes, that's correct.
Would you share with us a little bit about the art of choice making or decision making based on energy awareness and understanding of energy resonance?
We believe that in our teachings there are three bodies. You have a physical body, an energy body, and a spirit body. There are three worlds. There's a physical world, the energetic matrix of the world, and the spiritual matrix of the world. Just as there are three heavens, there's a physical heaven, there's the energy of it, and the spiritual matrix of that. As you orient through life, you have certain kinesthetic, intuitive perceptions that are connected to these energy bodies. And as you train to become sensitive to them, you begin to feel the pulse of the energy that's in the earth and in the planet. And the idea is to respond to that. Now, as we continue to train, you go through these deaths and rebirths. And speaking of deaths, you have emotional thought belief systems, and they're attached to things of your past. And we say that if you heal from the past, you can change your present state and alter your future. If you're doing that, then you become more hypersensitive to the energetic pulse that changes within you, and it attracts different things to you. Absolutely. So your friends and your support system maintain that current state. So each time you have this spiritual awakening, death, and rebirth, then sometimes friends will drop off and new friends will be added, but your energy shifts, and then your sensitivity to the things outside yourself shift.
And inside of you as well.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it's important to know your energy so that you can feel what you resonate with and what you don't resonate with.
Exactly.
If you're not aware of your own energy, there's nothing to compare.
That's true.
And obviously this is also where you begin with, in order to develop awareness of other people's energy.
Right.
Again, you have to connect with your own energy first.
Exactly.
And how do you do that?
Well, in the Taoist training, and whether it's martial arts or medicine or spiritual practices, you always begin with training yourself. Whether it's a posture, the breath, or what you're thinking about. It all comes down to releasing and letting go of attachments to old stories and actually feeling. How that's introduced can be holding this posture, aligning yourself, doing different respiratory patterns until you become sensitive about that. Once you become sensitive to this respiratory pattern, then you relax even more. As you relax, then the mind begins to relax and then feel. As it expands outside, then it embraces the energetic field, which then embraces the spiritual field. At that point, the inside becomes outside, and then the outside affects the things on the inside.
And if you notice something about your respiratory pattern that, for example, feels like, let's say, shallow breathing.
Okay.
So your lungs fill up only to half capacity.
Okay.
What is the next step?
Well, at that point, you realize there's a restriction.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the restriction, you have to find out, well, how come I'm not breathing as deep? In the clinic, we always look at people with hypertension. People with hypertension always breathe shallow. So you have to give them exercises that have them breathe from the lower abdominal area, and then the breath drops down. But now you're just breathing down here. So the idea is to go from here all the way up. And in doing that, a lot of times they break. By break, what I mean, they start experiencing trapped emotions. And the trapped emotions then come up, and then from there, the goal is to process those emotions, release them. Once the youngest you felt this, how can you release that and then let it go? The primary goal is to teach you how to release the attachments to these things that you hold on to that are restricted.
And how do you do that?
Actually, I'll tell you a secret.
Well, that's the name of our show.
Because a lot of times when I teach the Taoist mysticism, people come in and they're all excited about it. And the first thing I teach them is Intercepting Karma. And they're like, what? I go, well, the importance of Intercepting Karma is that your belief system, what you truly believe, you act in accordance to that. Mm-hmm. And if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to trust other people. All these things about the magical tools, you are the magic. This is just an extension of who you are. But so what we have to do is uncover why you're sabotaging. And so to uncover why you're sabotaging, you have to feel. And in order to feel, you have to first address where's the origin of this.
So perhaps you were told by your parents or your elder brother or somebody, you're no good, you are lazy, or you are stupid, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of got ingrained. Right. And then you continue sabotaging yourself even though you're no longer subject to the verbal abuse.
Well, if you think about it, words are very powerful, but also your belief system. So every day you hear things that are encouraging and discouraging, but the minute you lock onto something and then you allow your spirit to crystallize around it, you create a whole emotional environment based on the focus of your intent as you mold these thoughts or this statement over and over. Mm-hmm. With that, you create a thought form. And this thought form then has all these other things that are attached to it, and it begins to grow exponentially. And then if you give into those thoughts, then it can be either positive or very detrimental depending on the types of thoughts that are there.
What do you mean by a thought form?
A thought form is, if I say you're good, then you go, okay, what does good mean? Then with the good, is good kind? Okay, kind. And then all of a sudden the kindness is attached to good. Am I righteous? Oh, okay, righteous is connected to, and so however you construct the word good creates a thought form.
Interesting.
And the more that it builds up, then the more it fills up your spirit body, and that begins, after a while, it gives birth to a cause and effect. That's why you get certain people that will self-sabotage. You get them into a certain position, and then they destroy everything that they've built because their underlying agenda is that they don't really believe they deserve that.
They don't believe they're good.
No, and so you can tell them, and I always tell the students when they're working with patients, if they have extremely low self-esteem, their way to approach them has to be correct and supportive. But for a person that believes that they're worthless, you can't tell them that they're good. You start off with, you're not bad. They can relate to that and they'll accept that. But if you tell them they're really good, they'll reject everything that you've said because their self-esteem is so bad. And slowly, in stages, you work them through to where they can accept who they are.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's different depending on their history. And sometimes to get to that point, you have to unravel all of these stories that they're holding on to and carrying. You know, we say that in every relationship you go through 3 stages. You go through a hearts and flower stage where you're excited about what you're learning, you're excited about this thing, and then you go to a chaotic stage. When you go into that chaotic stage, the ghosts from your past come up and begin to steal or haunt that present state. If they have low self-esteem, then usually they give up and then start all over again. But if they stay and focus on a power, a higher type of energy, a divine, let's call it divine energy, then they have the wherewithal to die, release, and to die you have to then face those individuals or the belief structures that are challenging you to give up. Once that happens, then you have new beginnings, and we call it a death and a rebirth, a new awakening, you start again. And in this life, it's a constant process of that. To maintain that and be successful, it's real important to have good friends. We were talking about that prior. Your friends will support you, and they will love you no matter what. My first Dragon Gate teacher and I were talking about this many years ago, and he goes, many people, if they're lucky, they have 2 friends, maybe 3 in this life. And I go, no, not me, I have hundreds of friends. He goes, well, maybe our definition of what friends are is different. And I go, oh no, I have hundreds, literally hundreds of friends.
I have thousands of friends
yeah.
on Facebook.
Yeah. And he goes, let me define for you my definition of friends. I go, okay. A friend is a person that you can describe to them your deepest, darkest secrets, the most profound things, the most humiliating, embarrassing, painful things that have happened to you in your life. And although they may be shocked at some of the things that have happened to you, they will still be there for you, they will love you, and they won't tell anybody. They will hold it as sacred because you shared it in confidence. And I looked at him and I go, I don't have any friends. Who can find someone like that? And he goes, exactly. He goes, eventually like attracts like. If you're a man of integrity and honor, you will attract to yourself men of integrity and honor. Not always, because you still will get people that are parasites that will be attracted to you to see what they can do to live off of you. But you will still, now and then, generate those people of high honor and high integrity. Those, after a while, you call them friends, and then you work with you.
Right, and you also mentioned in a private conversation that your friends are stronger than your willpower.
Yes.
So obviously you were not talking about this kind of friends, you were talking about some other kind.
Well, your true friends will stand by you no matter what. They will ask you if something happens. We're friends, so if something happens to you, and they go, oh, did you hear about the blah, 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 and first you defend, wait, this is gossip. Then I pull you aside and go, what happened? And then being your friend, you go, well, this happened to me, da, da, da. After that, all this is misinterpretation. It's their own filters and projections of their own fear. Everybody needs to have a villain, and so instead of looking at their own selves, they blame you. That way, by blaming you, they don't have to grow.
They can project onto you some of the things that they'll want to experience within themselves.
Exactly. But your friends will defend you, and then if you're wrong, then they'll say, that's on you. That's a projection of your own stuff. You need to clean this up. You're a man of God, you're a man of light. Do the right thing. And then you go, you're right, this is my standard, this is the quality that I have decided that I want. It's my choice, and this is what I choose. And that's what your friends do for you. That's the cool thing about a friend. I had a teacher tell me, you have been studying with me long enough to know that I love you. And I go, yes. Therefore, and he just broke, do this, do this, do this, because my highest goal for you is to see you thrive as a child of light. You're doing this, which is, it's now time for you to grow up and move on. You need to do this, and that's a true friend. And we support each other that way.
True. And you mentioned the 3 stages of relationship, and I'm sure that our listeners and viewers would be curious to hear the 3rd stage because you haven't mentioned it yet.
Oh, okay. The first stage is a hearts and flowers stage. Okay, that's, let's say a couple gets together and this is a
honeymoon.
Yes, or just meeting. Because the fantasies come, oh, they could be this, and that's a hearts and flowers. They start dating, they're still in the hearts and flowers. The endorphins are kicking in and everything's great. Then eventually, the ghosts of the past will come in from both her and him. And then the chaos stage, the first arguments come in. It's this time of conflict. Now, for them to, because each one is an individual, for him to move on with her, he has to slay those demons, those ghosts of the past that come up to challenge him. Well, and they accuse, say, on both sides. So for them to continue walking, they have to both die to parts of their entitlements, to their rights of the past. The minute they do that, then they can leave that stage. What happens in most couples is everything will be fine until the first altercation. Then they begin to stack walls. Once they give enough walls, then they can walk away because they've done all this violation and this infringement, and now I need to be free. It has nothing to do with that. They're just reflecting back on you the things you haven't healed from. And so what happens is, in the second stage, it'll kill them both. Once they both die, then the third stage is the new beginnings. The new him that has never been here before because this fighting his ghosts have killed him, and the new her that she's never been here before because she has to die to these patterns, fuse together, and then new beginnings. A new he will introduce himself to the new she, and then that produces again hearts and flowers. And at that point, the intimacy goes deeper and deeper and deeper. If not, they'll reach a certain plateau, and then you hear, a lot of times in counseling, I hear it from the different men and women, all women are this way, or all men are this way, and it's just because they've chosen these certain patterns. And instead of growing beyond that, they haven't found a mate that they trust enough to die. When you trust enough, when you have a good mate that you can die, then everything shifts, everything changes, and in that trust, you're able to go to the next level. What we're taught is everyone has different levels of spiritual evolution. If you're a 5.5 in your spiritual evolution,
out of 100?
no, 10.
Oh.
And you hook up with a 3.2 mate, okay? The 3.2 mate will cause you to drop down to evolve and be with them. Although you may lift them up, they will pull you down.
So you don't meet each other halfway?
No.
You can just get
Everybody
pulled down.
sacrifices. So that's why you're always encouraged to try to find a mate you're equal. Now, if you're lucky enough to find a mate you're equal, you both will still go through the chaotic stage. You will die, she will die, and then as you both grow, you'll leapfrog. As you continue growing, you continue pulling her up. As she continues growing, she continues pulling you up because you're focused on the same goal. In relationship, we know that you're temporary in this realm and in this plane. So your relationship is a dream. It's not real. It's an illusion. But you're lucid and awake in the dream and the illusion, and you're choosing to work with this mate for the highest good. Now, for that to work, it's very advantageous to have a mate that has the same concept and an idea. Otherwise, then you're forever pulling them through. And at that point, the 3.2 is never going to grow. And you'll never go beyond that because of the frustration of you dropping down to relate. Do you understand?
Oh yes, of course. And you're speaking the same language that I speak in terms of the dream of a relationship,
Yes.
and also awakening in this dream.
Yes.
And obviously, it's great to have a partner who can also be awakened in the same dream, so
Right.
you can dream it together.
Right.
Now, of course, even after the most profound awakenings, we tend to fall asleep again.
Yes.
And so what happens then is, if it doesn't happen simultaneously to both partners, then the one who fell asleep can be assisted by the one who is awake,
Exactly.
and vice versa.
As long as they have the same goal of if they're focused on the same purpose.
Mm-hmm.
We always say that like attracts like. You're attracted to different people because of certain vibrational resonance that you feel comfortable with. Now, it doesn't mean always that these vibrational resonances are healthy. It's just that you feel comfortable in their presence. As you heal, that vibration changes. So I'm married, and I was telling my friends, I go, it's hard to believe that I'm married. And they go, why? Because I'm always happy. Yeah, it's really great. Now, as we go through our deaths and rebirth, because our focus is constantly to spiritually grow, then you realize that this person is neither male nor female, they're a light. If they're a light, then the two lights together can cause a brilliant radiance if you constantly focus on feeding the light. To keep that brilliant radiance active and alive, you have to feed it. And you only do that if it has value and purpose and function for you. That's how you keep your integrity, your honor, because that becomes paramount. And through all of life, you choose that. You are awake in the dream. You go, no, I choose us, I choose this goal. With or without you, I will still continue this goal. And they say the same thing. With or without you, I'm still walking that path. Consequently, then when you get together with someone like that, they're a gift because you're both working towards the same goal. Now, when they stumble, you're there to catch them. When you stumble, they're there to catch you. And that's the beautiful thing about having the fortune of having a mate that's awake. And in that, you watch each other go through the hearts and flowers stage, the chaos, the new beginnings, then the hearts and flowers stage, the chaos, the new beginning. Because life goes like this.
The cycle of samsara.
Right, always this way. And so that's the beauty of it. I think it's quite a wonderful realm to grow and to learn from.
Well, and of course, both of us have been married and divorced enough times to know how that sometimes works great and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
So when you find yourself in a situation that it doesn't work so great, then how do you address that?
Well, it would be more advantageous if you could understand this before you took the committed leave. I remember I had a teacher, I was watching him and I studied him intently, him and his wife, because they were always happy and loving together. And I've been with many, many different spiritual people, and I've watched conflicts in the relationship. And when they had conflict, they were able to smooth it out and work it out and then move on. So in the second year, I was sitting at his table, and I looked at him and I pointed at his wife and I go, I want one of those. And he goes, you what? I go, I want one of those. And he goes, oh, you love the fact that she's subservient to me. I go, yes. And he goes, do you want to know why? And I thought, oh, this is great. Why?
That's the secret.
Yeah, because I am subservient to her. And I'm like, what? And he goes, like attracts like. And he goes, I'm on a spiritual path. With or without her, I will walk this path. With or without her, my highest goal is to be loving and to always lift her up. With or without me, she's on the spiritual path. And her highest goal is to lift people up around her. I am just fortunate enough, and we are fortunate to hook up with the same intent. So, you want one of those? I go, yes, you have to be one of those. And when you become one of those, then like will attract like. But you have to understand, this is how it works. And so I'm digging in because,
It's getting juicy.
Yeah, he goes, right now your decisions are made and based on your past hurt, your past woundings. Your future decisions are based on this state. And this is the very individual you're trying to rise above and kill. I go, oh, I understand that. He goes, so what will happen is you become what you want and you will attract these people to you. Now this is the first test. They're still a product of your past. Because although you're dying and changing, that vibrational resonance is still active within you.
And even what you want is also often affected by your past experiences.
Exactly.
and programming.
He goes, so what I always tell people is, he goes, I tell them not to date or do anything for 9 months. He goes, but the problem is, they'll wait. They'll take 9, I'll do this. And then they mark off each day in the calendar. And then when they come, they cash it in. You owe me. You said I would have this. And they never get what they want. It's because their goal is not to grow. Their goal is not to release and let go. Their goal is to get this and invest the time and effort and blame me because I told them this. And I told them, I go, I understand that, because really it's not the time. It doesn't take 9 months. It takes them to give up the old patterns. He goes, exactly. Then when the next group of people will come, you wait and they will leave. And then finally the third group of people will come and there'll be a higher resonance. But by then you have died so many times, you're no longer looking for this. You have now embodied that state. You don't need a mate, it's just given as a gift because you find someone who's walking the same path that you are and you go, wow, look at that. And then as you share, that opens everything up. Now, it's like all things, you have different things that are attached to your path that you will still have to go through the hearts and flowers, the chaos, and the new beginnings. It doesn't matter who you choose. It's just you're with a mate who's willing to do the work, and that's what you need. None of us are perfect. We're just willing to do the work. And that's what this training ground is all about.
Right, and it actually perfectly matches what I always teach and practice myself. Constant transitioning from the mode of having to the mode of being.
Right.
And of course, you were probably wondering when you were speaking to your old teacher, how do I transition from the mode of wanting to have the partner to the mode of being that kind of partner?
Exactly.
So that this kind of energy that you would identify with would naturally attract the same level of consciousness of your potential partner.
And do you know what he told me? He said, every time you want this, detach and give it to the divine. Detach and give it to the divine. Because at that point, you're no longer looking for a person, place, or thing to have what you already have inside of you.
Right.
As you give it to the divine, then you discover it inside of you. And then, he goes, then you don't need to have this or that, or you're just existing. He goes, you know, when we meditate, we practice dying. I go, really? He goes, yes, that's what meditation is. You disconnect from everything and go into that quiet, still point. I go, yes. He goes, so we're awake in the still point. This is the advantage that we have when we do all this energy training. It's just that we're awake. And at that point, we make decisions. Do I want to do this? I just have to take responsibility of this. Do I want to do that? It's my decision for that. He goes, so when you detach from all of these things, of these wantings and needings, you pop out of these different lower realms and then have a different vibrational resonance. Then that will attract a different type of vibrational resonance. Because all of you have guardians. You have people that are keeping you away from these people. Other people they let in because it's about the lesson you're to learn in this.
Well, you sound very much like a Tibetan Buddhist at this moment rather than Taoist. Must be some kind of influence of your Nyingma teacher, right?
Yes, my Nyingma teacher is a very loving, very powerful. He had a very profound effect on me in my life. I was just sharing with my disciples this morning. I was trained as a martial artist, and all the Taoist magic that we were trained was for self-defense and for protection. And then from there we go through these different levels and realms. And when I met the Lama that I was studying with, we'd come across a problem. I go, well, we could do this and this and this. And he'd look at me and he'd go, we could do that, or we could do this. And I'd always go, oh, that's why I'm with you. I was thinking about that too, because he's very loving. And at that point I started changing. I was telling the guys that I had a realm of fighters that I was training, and I've run into them over the years, and they haven't changed. They're still angry and bitter, and it really hurts my heart to see them because I train them, and I look at them and I just go, they've never left the hell realm, where they're constantly defensive, constantly angry, and if they don't let that go, that's what they'll have in this life. So the neat thing about the different teachings, about the different spiritual teachings, is that each of these saints and men and women of the light offer you different concepts, different teachings that if you're willing and you're open, will transform you to a higher level. That's why we always say that I was telling my mom and dad many years ago, I used to be religious and now I'm spiritual. And they were like, well, what's the difference? And I go, well, when I was religious, my side was winning. And they go, and now? I said, well, now we're all on the same side. We're all going towards the same true light. Your path that you choose is a matter of preference. It's either cultural preference or it's something that you have an affinity with. But when we get closer to the light, when you meet a man and woman from a different tradition that love the divine, you feel as if you've known them for years because that true love of the divine is still inside of you, it's still inside of them. They may follow a different discipline, they may have different saints and guardians, but they still have the final purpose of being in harmony with the divine and being of divine service. We're all the same that way. It's different from religion where people are trying to be right and they set these different standards, which we need and which are important. But after that, then you need to rise above that and be a living body, a living testament of your faith.
Well, it's interesting that you're talking about divine, and the more you use the term, the more I'm curious about how you reconcile this mannerism of speech or perhaps thinking with your Nyingma training, because there is no divine to speak of in Tibetan Buddhism.
Yeah, this is the enigma about me. I'm a Christian Taoist Buddhist. And people go,
Syncretist.
yeah, how does that work? I said, well, okay. I was raised in a Christian household. I used to teach Bible studies. In fact, the first time I was treating a patient and I got my first demon-possessed patient. Now, we went from Catholic to Lutheran to Pentecostal. So, well, I've been through the extreme. But Jesus is still in my heart, and it's a very powerful relationship, and I love the teachings and I follow them. So I'm there and teaching a Bible study on Wednesday night, and I'm a song worship leader. And I get my first demon-possessed patient, and it's a true demon. When you're in the presence of a person that's demonic possessed, the whole room shifts. It's like you're standing in a waking dream because they're in control of the spirit. And it's a terrifying state. The first time, now you get used to it, but the first time it was very terrifying. And I remember when it happened, she came to me because she had a brain tumor. Not to be spirit, I hope I'm spirit possessed. Usually when people say they're spirit possessed, they're usually not. It's some type of psychosis. Not all the time, but most of the time. The people who are actually demonic possessed don't know it, because the spirit keeps them away. So she came in because I'm a Qigong doctor, and my specialty is treating cancer. And so she had a brain tumor. So I put her on the table and she started, I do the 1 through 10. 1 through 10 is connecting between heaven and earth. Then I do my 3 invocations, which are, I surrender myself to the divine, surrender the room to the divine, create an energy ball, and envelop the patient. The minute I enveloped her, she started thrashing, and the first thing I thought of was like, I'm on candid camera. This can't be real. Well, because you go into denial. No, this is not real. And the energy, now she's about 78, but the power coming from her, I knew that if she grabbed onto me, she could throw my body across the room. And I knew that it wasn't a question. And I went, oh, this is a demon-possessed person, and I've heard stories, but it wasn't anything like I had imagined. And so she's thrashing about, so I go, wait. What I remember from my Christian training was that when Michael the Archangel fought Lucifer, that he knew he couldn't defeat Lucifer because Lucifer was the most powerful angel ever created. It was called the Great Morning Star. Even his voice was like music. What he did is when he fought against him, he said, the Lord God rebuke you. So in the divine presence, that's the power that defeated the devil. Okay, we'll use that as a temperament for right now, or template. So I remember that, so I go, okay, it's not going to be Jer versus the spirit. So I immediately connected back up, and then filled with divine light, and just started pulling out these demonic creatures. This went on for 6 weeks. Each time I do this, she had no recollection of what was happening. And I wasn't going to say, woman, you're full of devils. I'm pulling and pleading the blood of Christ over you. What I did was I just told her, I go, well, you have turbid energy, stagnant energy, and I'm removing it from you. So this happened on Tuesday, the first time. Remember, this went on for 6 weeks. At the end of the 6th week, I pulled the last demon out, and then the tumor dissolved like that. She went to the hospital, it was gone, but I never told her that she was demon-possessed. On Tuesday night, I had no one to talk to. But Wednesday, I'm teaching a Bible study and a song of worship. So I figured, home, I have friends, I have sanctuary. So the next night, I'm singing while leading everybody in praise and worship, and then in the middle I always go, does anybody have anything to share? Nobody had anything to share, and I was dying to tell them. So good, I got my first demon-possessed patient, and I started sharing, and the room shifted. And when you know that you've said the wrong thing to the wrong people, all of a sudden I realize that, I don't have support here. These aren't friends. These are people that have come to do it, but I can't share this with them. And it was a very, very hard memory a lesson to learn. So at that point, I quickly changed the subject. What about the Dodgers? Think they'll win the pennant? Go back into song and worship. Sunday, I go to church on Sunday, and then the assistant pastor's there. And I walk in, and he goes, Brother Jer, how's it going? And they've talked. And I go, okay, Steve, cut through the chase. What is it you want to know? He goes, can you come in my office there, brother? So I go in the office, and he goes, what is this about demon-possessed patient? So I explained to him what happened. And he goes, Jerry, look, you don't tell spiritual things to religious people. He goes, I will coach you through this. I go, really? He goes, I did two tours in Vietnam, and my way to overcome this, I'm a chopper pilot, or I used to be. The way to overcome this is I hooked up with a Dragon's Gate Taoist priest, and I'm going to teach you all the things he taught me in those 2 tours. He goes, I'll teach you all the stuff that I learned, and it was great. At that point, he began my teaching, or actually on my training, and then teaching me. He was really a good teacher. And I remember talking to him, I go, this is incredible. Do you teach this to the congregation? He goes, oh no, they'd excommunicate me. But I was taught it for a reason. And I always wondered why, and you're the reason. So I'm going to give you everything so that you can pass it on. They won't kick you out because people don't understand you anyhow. It's kind of the strange one. He goes, but I'll teach you everything because the primary goal for this is to be of service. He goes, but don't share this with these people. He goes, look, but I have to tell you something right away. I bet you think that if you do all this good work, that you'll die and then go to heaven and be rewarded and be close to God for that. I go, why, yes. He goes, not at all. I go, what? He goes, what happens when you die is you unzip the meat suit and your spirit comes out. You want to get close to God, you get close to God now. Once you die, you lose any opportunity. This is just a testing area. This is all this is for. This is an illusion. This is not real. It is all about the refining of your spirit. He goes, these people are putting down their penance to try to buffer their guilt. When you're walking on a spiritual walk, you take accountabilities of the things you do and you don't do. So part of me, I'm going to teach you this, but I'm going to teach you everything. And the first thing is, if you want to get close to the divine, you do it now. Because this is the opportunity. Once you die, you have missed opportunities. It's over. You have to come back and start it again. And each time, you erase the blackboard. And so everything that you've learned here, all the skills, all the powers that you've acquired, it's gone. As you start again, the only thing that you take with you is that spiritual light of empowerment from the relationships that you have with the divine in surrendering and overcoming these different challenges. That's why you can get little children that are like old souls that have an innate wisdom. They've earned that through their different tours. And I understood that. And so in that, I went from the Christian to Taoist to Nyingma and Buddhist in my training.
Right. Right. Fantastic. Well, do you have any words of wisdom that you would like to conclude our interview today?
Oh, I'm looking to the audience. I know that life is very precious and everything's about transformation. And it's about our desires to help and to serve others that opens doors and closes doors. The neat thing about having each other and having this type of network is that you provide a service so that everyone can enrich in their lives and the lives of their friends. And so I just want to thank you for making this available to the public, and thank you for tuning in and for watching.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You've been listening to the interview with Dr. Jerry Allen Johnson on the talk show The Secrets of Qigong Masters. This show is brought to you by Academy of Qidao, the first and only school in the world offering professional education in Qigong coaching. Please visit qigongcoaching.com to find out about the programs and events offered by Academy of Qidao.